The purpose of this video is to support the training of personnel in the method of visual identification of plastic in rivers. For this method, the personnel or the observers are standing on bridges, counting the amount of visible, floating, and superficially submerged plastic for a certain duration. Riverine plastic easily gets entangled in roots or other structures along the river. But we will focus on observing the plastic in the flowing water of the river. And for this purpose, bridges are practical points of observation. On top of the bridge, one gets a good overview of the floating objects on the river surface. Here, divide yourself into two roles, the observer and the secretary. Let's take a closer look at the different roles of the observer and the secretary. The observer observes the surface of the water and communicates what is seen to the secretary. The secretary does not observe the river, but notes down what the observer sees. The observations are noted in the standardized observation sheet for this particular method. How wide the river is, how fast the river flows, and how much plastic is flowing. This will set the boundary for the width of the river that can be monitored in one go. Let's see another example. In this tributary, the riverbanks are supported by walls, and a quick glance at the river reveals plastic floating on the surface. Here also is a bridge to do the observations from. Again, divide yourself into the roles of the observer and the secretary, and start to note down what is observed. Observe, count, and note down for 5 minutes. Remember to calculate the flow rate of the surface of the river. Let's take one last example. Again, there is a suitable bridge for the observation. However, in this case, the river is too wide to be monitored in one go. Therefore, we divide it into two sections. And let's call this divide and observe. Let's take a closer look at what that actually means. When the river is too wide, it can be divided into sections. 2, 3, or as many as is needed to cover the whole width of the river. Now the procedure of observation is still the same. The only difference is that one only observes what is in the boundary of the segment. The observation is done for 2 minutes for each segment, and when the 2 minutes are up, the observer and the secretary moves along the bridge to monitor the next segment. This also is for 2 minutes before moving on to the next segment until the whole width of the river is covered. So after you have divided the river into segments, you divide yourself into the secretary and the observer. You observe and you note down for 2 minutes. And when the 2 minutes are up, you move on to the next segment of the river and you repeat the procedure. Remember to calculate the flow rate. Information on how to do this can be found in the provided protocol. And in this case, we can see that the water is muddy. This is due to rain. Such factors might contribute to the results, and it is therefore important to note down the general weather conditions. These and other details will be provided in the standardized observation sheet.